There have been rumors floating around for years that Donald Trump cannot read, at least not at a very high level. And this rumor resurfaced in the last couple of days when the new British Prime Minister came to visit in the Oval Office, and he handed him a letter from King Charles. And it's like, read it in front of everybody, go for it. And you could tell how many ways from Sunday Donald Trump was trying to get out of reading this letter out loud. It was not going to happen. And it started the rumors again. Now, before I go any further, let me just say, this is far more common than we would think. About 21% of US adults, which is about 43 million people, have a low literacy rate. And this is the part that I wanted to discuss, is that 54% of adults have a literacy below the 6th grade level. So it is my contention that Donald Trump can read. He just does so at a very low level. Oftentimes your reading comprehension and your spoken dialect, your vocabulary are tied together. And here you can see down here, the vocabulary and syntax of his campaign speeches measures out to a 4th grade level. So it's been said he speaks at about a 4th grade level. Now you see here, it says there are plenty of videos of him reading out loud. So he's at least capable of doing it at a 6th grade level. Whether or not he can read much above that is in doubt, because he mispronounces some really commonly known words like Yosemite, Minneapolis, plasma, etc. So he could be functionally illiterate, right? He's already admitted that he gets most of his news from watching TV, that he admits that most people write reports for him. They write his tweets or his truths or whatever for him. So he dictates a lot of stuff, and he surrounds himself with the people that can do the work. So maybe he doesn't need to be all that literate. Now, it says here that he can read any number of things, but he has difficulty understanding what he reads. He has a trouble with comprehension, and there could be intellectual deficiencies, meaning that he is unable to think critically, he uses poor judgment, et cetera, et cetera. And again, 54% of American adults only read at a 6th grade level. So this isn't entirely uncommon. Someone made a TikTok saying that it's not that he can't read, it's that he needs glasses, and he's too fucking vain to wear glasses, or because that would then, ruin the notion that he is some sort of perfect specimen of man. But I'm going to disagree, because I don't know. I don't know if you would stomach people thinking you're illiterate versus just like every other person in your age group, you might need reading glasses. I feel like that's not that much of a stigma. Now, I know he's into that whole eugenics thing, but that goes right out of the window when you look at the size of his waistline and the color of his makeup, right? Clearly, he is not the epitome of manhood. So wearing glasses isn't going to mess with the notion at this point. I can't imagine he would go around letting people think he was illiterate versus, wearing glasses. I also think, too, that there are plenty of opportunities to improve yourself. So if you do struggle, if you have some type of, say, dyslexia, or you have struggles reading, he's the president of the United States. He could pay for the best tutors. They could sneak him into the White House, and no one would ever have to know that he was getting tutoring on the side. Now, I can't imagine how difficult it would be to admit to people that you were illiterate, or even like functionally illiterate. That's got to be a pretty prideful situation, and it would be very hard to admit it. And it's crazy the lengths that some people would go to hide that from others. It reminded me of this, it's a book and a movie. It's called The Reader. And you may have seen the movie. It starred Kate Winslet. It's the one that she won an Oscar for. And it's the story of this woman who cannot read, and this young boy she's having an affair with reads to her out loud, and that's kind of how she learns about the world. But there's more to that. Toward the end, you realize that this woman, her name is Hannah, in her sort of past life that she's sort of left behind. At one point, she was an SS guard at a woman's section of Auschwitz. And her and these other guards were responsible for a whole bunch of like 300 or so Jewish women who then subsequently died in a fire. And they're found, like these German guards are found, and they're brought in for trial. Hannah was actually not at fault. And it was all written down, and there was written instruction, and there was all this stuff that was chronicled. However, Hannah would have to admit that she didn't write that instruction. She'd have to provide a handwriting sample. She would have to be able to admit that she couldn't read it or didn't write it, and then everyone would find out she was illiterate. So she would rather, and she chose to, go to prison for the rest of her life and have everyone think that she was this, well, she was a fucking monster Nazi guard at Auschwitz, personally responsible for the death of all of these Jewish women. She would much rather have people think that than to have anyone know she couldn't read. And I remember watching that movie and I sat there and I thought, what the fuck? Who does that? Who does that? Who just lets themselves go down in a big ball of fucking flames because they won't admit that they can't read? Which brings me back to, do you think Donald Trump can read? I'm worried about all of those things that people are just sliding in front of him and he's got his big old fucking Sharpie and he's like, Donald Trump. If he can't read what he's signing, we're in big fucking trouble. And he would let us go down in a big ball of flames before he'd admit he had no idea what he just signed.